Hey everyone. I was asked a few days ago about when I was showing off Astromech and sharing some of the videos where I show what its capabilities are. And I think it was actually one of the earlier videos where it was Astromech was fairly simple, straightforward. Um, it was basically just upload a script, well, git push a script, and you could run it from the web. And this person asked, uh, so you just reinvented CGI-BIN. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with CGI-BIN, CGI, the Common Gateway Interface, was I guess it still is. You can still do it, but it's kind of fallen out of favor. It's an older way of one of the very early ways for executing server-side logic from the web. So if you wrote Perl for the web, you were probably writing a CGI uh, program, um, because you could eventually run Perl as a um, outside of CGI-bin, kind of is built into Apache as a module. But for most of its popular lifetime, it was Perl programs would be run from the web via CGI-BIN, um, if they were run from the web. Obviously, Perl has a long life of doing utility scripts and stuff like that. Some things that people use Python for now. Python you could also run as a CGI-BIN program. Basically, CGI-BIN was a specific folder called CGI-bin, this common gateway interface dash binaries, right? Bin. Um, and you could drop applications, little programs, I guess programs specifically scripts into this folder. Make sure that they were executable. They had to be executable, um, because it was basically the way that Unix systems used this folder to run scripts. And then if you typed in the name of that script, server name slash CGI bin slash name of script, it would run the script. Um, and there were certain rules around it. So that like the post body would get submitted to the application in a specific way, um, and it would be run in a specific way. There was actually a very popular Perl module, um, not the Apache module that allowed you to run Perl, but the a module for Perl that allowed it to interact with the Common Gateway interface. So extract things from standard input and or from the post body and the HTTP request and that sort of thing. Um, and that actually evolved into some other newer technologies like fast CGI is actually not CGI at all. Um, and then WSGI, something else. There are, other uh, systems and mechanisms and implementations that evolved from the original CGI-BIN concept. So anyway, this person asked, "Did you just reinvent CGI-BIN?" And in the very early versions of Astromech, the answer is probably yes. I basically did, because there really wasn't a lot of logic around uh, how to run these scripts. It basically looked in a specific directory for a script, and if it was there, it ran it. That was it. I eventually extended Astromech to allow, if you post something to that URL, then it would inject that into the script as standard input. Or inject is the wrong word there. Redirect, more accurately. At that point, still basically CGI bin, maybe implementation differences, but still basically CGI bin. But that was never the end goal of Astromech. The end goal of Astromech was to provide more information about the scripts that you are running. So documentation about them, uh, documentation about, for instance, command line arguments, which there will be a video about that coming out pretty soon. Maybe not this week, possibly next week. Um, and sort of audit trail around it. So with CGI-BIN applications, there was really no system of authentication. You could do basic authentication, but it was basically at that point it's limited by the web server. The web server has to provide authentication around it. Um, and then logging, audit trail logging, all that sort of stuff. Sure, you can look at the web server logs. Um, but you don't get the level of granularity that you do with a true automation system. And that's kind of the vision for Astromech. So yes, on its surface, it's just running scripts from a particular directory in response to a particular web request. But long term, the vision is far more sophisticated than that. It includes documentation. It includes being able to edit it in auditable ways. Um, Again, auditing or having an audit log, an execution log of that particular script, being able to know who ran it, when it ran, why it ran, those sorts of things. So CGI-BIN can only run in response to web requests, but with Astromech, there's nothing stopping us. It doesn't do it right now, but the plan is eventually for it to basically have a cron sort of system built in. Um, and yes, you could certainly run a script from cron or another scheduled task runner. That is not a problem. That is not the problem that Astromech solves, because there are plenty of other good ways to do that. Um, but those are less visible, less documented, less accessible, less auditable. And that's the goal that Astromech is meant uh, to solve. So we'll get into a lot of that functionality in future videos, mainly because it's just wasn't really all that visible up until, well, still isn't. We're still playing around with getting that going and working on that. So initially, the answer to that question, did I just reinvent CGI-BIN? Maybe the answer was yes. In the future, in the very near future, the answer is no. This is not CGI-BIN. This is not a modern take on CGI-BIN. This is very, very different. It just happens to be running scripts that you probably could have run with CGI-BIN as well, but you would lose out on a lot of functionality and it would be far less secure. CGI-BIN is definitely a relic of a time well before we fully understood the cybersecurity uh, implications of what we were doing. And certainly, maybe the web was actually a safer place back 20, 30 years ago. So hopefully I answered some questions. If I raised more, go ahead and leave them down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you want to see some of the demos of Astromech, go ahead and check out those previous videos. If I remember, I'll add links to them in the description or put them, somewhere on the screen. Um, but check out the other videos on the channel. We do a lot of cool stuff here. Astromech is just one of them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.